Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Week 0 season preview for the 2022 college football season. Welcome to the Transfer Portal CFB. I am your host, Dylan Rubin King. This is powered by NoContextCFB. I am joined by Josh and Karan, a couple of our podcast hosts here on the Transfer Portal CFB. Let me start with you, Josh. It's been a minute since you've been on a pod. A lot's been going on for you, so it's great to see you back on the pod, man. How you been?
Good, man. Just relaxing. Trying to catch up on stuff. I binge listened to all the conference previews and everything that you guys put out, which was awesome. And can't wait to get into what we got in store for you guys.
I love to hear that, man. Our conference previews were stellar. So if you haven't checked those out, go make sure to watch all of those. When this comes out, there'll only be about 48 hours until college football. So make sure that you get caught up on all of our awesome preview content. Karan, it's good to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just getting back into gear for college football season. Haven't really been paying attention much, but obviously the previews have been helping me and a lot of other people get back into the groove. So yeah, I'm trying to get more content out and talk more college football.
Yes, sir. The wave of college football is right here. It just feels like we've been talking about in every single podcast. It's like we're, this many weeks away, we're this many months away. And now the days until college football graphics, I've been having to make the number bigger because it's only one number now. So yeah, at the time that you're listening to this, we're only 2 days away. So we're going to jump into our award predictions. We're going to jump into who we have going into the college football playoff and the national championship game. We're going to talk about our top upsets, a lot of the nitty gritty stuff, the headline stuff that you come to see. So kicking it off, we're going to go with our Heisman Trophy picks. Last season, when we did it on the Transfer Portal CFB last summer, we were all over the place. Nobody correctly picked Bryce Young. The closest anybody got was CJ Stroud. I myself picked Spencer Rattler. I was way off with that. So I'm hoping that I can redeem myself and be a little bit closer. So Josh, let me start with you. Let's break the news. Who is your Heisman Trophy winner for 2022 and why?
I'm going chalk. It's what a lot of people are picking. I'm going CJ Stroud. Quarterback, it's kind of a quarterback award. I know receivers and stuff have won it recently, but he's the best quarterback, I'd say, by a hair, even though I really love Bryce Young. He's not only got the preseason hype, he has the post-Heisman ceremony appearance hype. Players who show up, usually they do good the next season if they didn't win it. He's got the wide receivers, just as many wide receivers as you need. He's got the running game with Travion Henderson, so teams can't just tee off on the passing game. The offensive line's there. I'm assuming that Ohio State's going to make a national title run, so that's going to have him in the conversation. So easily for me, it was CJ Stroud as my Heisman pick.
Wow, easily. I mean, I've heard a lot of CJ Stroud. It seems like he's the consensus favorite. Bryce Young, he's not going anywhere. Will Anderson's getting some love. So Karan, do you think that CJ Stroud is going to be the Heisman favorite too for you? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, Stroud would be my pick. Honestly, I think it's probably going to go to a quarterback. It has in most other years. But if there's ever been a year for a defensive player to win it, I think Will Anderson has it this year. Last year, I would argue he should have gotten the invite over Aiden Hutchinson. I know you can accredit individual value to the team to Hutchinson, but statistically, Will Anderson blew him out of the water. I thought he should have gotten the invite. And I think assuming he improves this year, which it's hard, but he's the type of guy that I think he can put up a truly historic season and get up there and maybe win it. We don't know. But yeah, between him, Stroud, Young, I think it's going to be kind of the same type of guys in the conversation. You could definitely, I bet there's going to be at least one guy invited who nobody is talking about right now.
Oh, absolutely. I think, Stroud, Young, they should already have their suits picked out for New York City. I would say Will Anderson should too, if any defensive player is going to. But my pick, I'm going to go a little outside the box. It's not too outside the box, but it's not a quarterback. I'm going to go with Jackson Smith-Njigba for my Heisman pick. You talk about the last 5 games. He had 60 catches for 958 yards and 6 touchdowns in his last 5 games alone. And he was already having a really good season in the first 8 games before that. He came into the season, he was arguably the number 3 option on that offense. He had 2 first-round picks ahead of him, and he I don't want to say blew them out of the water statistically, but he led the team in catches and receiving yards. He only trailed in touchdowns, but he still had 9 on the season. I just think there's nothing JSN can't do. I mean, he caught 15 balls in the Rose Bowl game, and he still averaged over 23 yards a catch. Like, that's just unheard of. We've all known he's had talent. If you remember the 2020 season, he had that toe tap catch against Nebraska. I feel like that's how a lot of people were introduced to JSN. Me personally, I didn't expect him to break out last season. I figured it would have been this year when Olave and Wilson went to the NFL. But now that he's the clear number 1 wide receiver, I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up damn near 2,000 yards. Like, he puts up Trevor Inslee kind of numbers. Of course, there's other talent on Ohio State. You got Igbuka, you've got Julian Fleming, who should get a lot of catches, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trevion Henderson's going to be a big factor, but I just think JSN is, in my opinion, by far the best receiver in the country, and he's going to put up numbers that say so. So moving right along into our awards, Heisman is the headliner. We got to get that out of the way. Let's jump into the Davey O'Brien. I mean, you guys talked about CJ Stroud as your Heisman favorite. I feel like it's pretty easy to say that he would be the Davey O'Brien guy as well, but if there's anybody that could take him down, who do you guys think it would be? Karan, let me start with you.
I'm going to go with the sleeper pick that I think myself and a lot of other people on the West Coast have been floating around, but I think Cameron Ward is going to put up numbers this year, man. I mean, he's coming into Washington State with the same offensive coordinator he had at Incarnate Word. He just threw 47 touchdowns and 10 interceptions there. We know he can handle the big passing attempts. And Washington State, I mean, last year, obviously, Jaden Delora was pretty good for them. We know that they have potential to build around their quarterback. So I think Ward is definitely going to come in, and we'll get to it later, but I think he's going to have one of the biggest breakout seasons of the year.
Yeah, we're all aboard the Cameron Ward hype train. Me personally, I think Deshaun Stribling is going to be a huge benefactor of Cameron Ward being there in the Palouse. So I'm really excited for that. Josh, what do you think? Who do you think could possibly dethrone CJ Stroud from the Davey O'Brien Award, or Bryce Young, I suppose?
Yeah, so I have CJ Stroud listed, but going off your question, so looking at my Heisman article that I wrote, part 2, my second place finisher in the Heisman is Dylan Gabriel. I really believe in Dylan Gabriel and also Jeff Lebby. That combination was really good when Gabriel was a freshman at UCF. And when Lebby left, Gabriel, I mean, it was also the Gus Malzahn offense, which is like a really weird offense. But Gabriel didn't look as sharp. And I just think that looking at what Lebby did at Ole Miss, just not that, again, that Matt Corral wasn't good. I just think that Lebby is just a great offensive mind, and Gabriel is really good if he's put in the right system. And I think it's the right system. I know Oklahoma lost some players, but they still have good talent on offense. And I think it's one of those things where Brent Venables is going to focus on the defense and just be like, all right, Lebby, it's your offense. Just you do what you do. And I think Venables is just going to let the defense be, or let the offense be, excuse me. He's not going to tinker with it. He's not going to toy with it. So I think Gabriel's going to put up a major numbers. And I think he's going to be, I have him as my second in the Heisman. And I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like, okay, you didn't win the Heisman, so here's your award. Not that the Davey O'Brien is some throwaway award, but it's kind of the, okay, you didn't get the Heisman, here's your award.
It's kind of like the NFL with MVP, and then they give someone else, another quarterback, offensive player of the year. I think CJ Stroud would be my pick for Davey O'Brien too. We talked about he's the Heisman favorite for most people, but I think if I had to pick a sleeper, I would go with Hendon Hooker of Tennessee. I mean, his statistics are just mind blowing. Like, when you watch him play, he just seemed like a totally different quarterback from his Virginia Tech days. 31 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. The passing yard numbers didn't really blow you away, but when they did throw the ball, they were super effective. Obviously, he had 600 rushing yards as well. I just think he's going to blow up this year, even more than he did last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he might be the guy that nobody's talking about that could be in New York City for the Heisman Trophy showdown. I'm super excited for Hendon Hooker. I'm really excited for Tennessee. I'll talk about Tennessee a little bit later in the show as well. Let's move on to the Doak Walker Award, the best running back in the country. Who do we think it's going to be? Josh, let's start with you.
I've got a transfer running back, went to Alabama. I got Jahmyr Gibbs. I just think that he did so much at Georgia Tech with so little that you put him in a competent offense, he's going to put up crazy numbers. And I know it's just the running back award, but he's also a great receiver. He's also a really good returner. And that stuff does matter to voters. Like, it will stick in the back of their minds. So I just think that he will put up so many all-purpose yards, and along with just being a great running back, that you have to vote for him. I just really loved his all-around game. I'm a sucker for players like that. Sometimes it's like, okay, there's a running back who's like a better pure runner. It's like, I want the guy who can do everything. And that's what Gibbs is.
You mentioned a competent offense. Georgia Tech was not that. So I think Alabama is certainly an upgrade. I mean, he really had nowhere else to go but up, coming from Georgia Tech. Karan, who's your pick for the Doak Walker Award?
I'm going to go with Blake Corum from Michigan. I mean, we saw him last year put up numbers despite having to split carries with Hassan Haskins, who ended up winning the NFL. Last year, he lost a lot of snaps on passing downs because Haskins is so valuable as a blocker as well as a receiver. But I think Corum's going to be able to boost both his carries and his touches as a receiver as well, and kind of put up a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up like over 1,500 all-purpose yards, close to 2,000. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a touchdown machine. He was one last year despite being an RB2, and I think this year he's going to be really good as well. And we already know what he can do in that offense. It's only going to get better from here.
Absolutely loved Blake Corum, especially in the first half of the season before Hassan Haskins really just took off with that running back job. I feel like I'm kind of going basic compared to y'all. I'm going like white chocolate mocha here. I'm going Bijan Robinson as my Doak Walker. I just think this is the time for him to really prove that he's the best running back in the country. I would argue that he already is, but I don't feel like everybody's sold on that. To me, I think he's the best running back in terms of his skill and his ability. It would be the fifth time that a Texas running back had won the Doak Walker, which would be the most of anybody. Last season, he had 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. That's a really good season, but the last couple games, he just really kind of fell off, failed to go over 90 yards. He fumbled a couple times against Iowa State. I want to see him put together a whole season where he goes over 1,500, 15 touchdowns, and is just the anchor of that Texas offense that so many people are saying is going to be one of the best in the country. I think if he goes off against Alabama, it's going to be hard to top, a running back in the conversation for, maybe even Heisman, but definitely the Doak Walker. Let's go to the Biletnikoff. I mean, my pick is pretty obvious because I picked JSN to be the Heisman winner, so I would go with him as the Biletnikoff. Karan, who would be your pick for the best receiver in college football? Oh, you're muted.
My bad. But yeah, I would also take JSN. I think that should be everyone's take. But a guy that I think could definitely make a run for it is Josh Downs. I think he's going to be the entire UNC offense this year. And he's been putting up numbers every year, deep threat, yards after the catch. And I think that's all going to come together this year. And he's really he's going to go off. I could see him having a similar season to Jordan Addison last year. Obviously, two different type of players, but he's definitely going to help whoever's at quarterback next year for them, whether it be Drake May or Jacoby Criswell. And yeah, I think he's just going to go off in that RPO system. He's in the perfect scenario to go off. Obviously, you'd like to see him have a better quarterback, CJ Stroud type of guy, but he's going to get the ball and he's going to have chances to run.
I believe Drake May was announced as the starter for North Carolina. And I know I don't know if there was just North Carolina fans or just college football fans in general, but they came after us when we didn't put Josh Downs in our top 5. So it kind of made me reconsider, hey, maybe we're sleeping on this guy a little bit. Josh, what say you?
All right. I love Josh Downs, not just because of the name, but I'm not going with him. I'm going to go with, kind of like Karan said, there's the factor of someone who can be the Jordan Addison again, who can be the main guy. Just really off the stats real quick, Addison had 1,593 receiving yards. The next highest receiver for Pittsburgh had 658 receiving yards. And it's the thing where Addison was so good and teams couldn't stop him, even though he was the only threat. And I'm going to go with a similar guy. I'm going to go to LSU, Kayshon Boutte. That dude is so good. He's wearing the legendary number 7. Get a little bit of that magic in there. And I mean, I think Jaden Daniels is probably going to be the quarterback. And if there's one thing Daniels is good at, it's throwing a deep ball and just throw it up to Boutte and let him just run past people. And he's just so good. And I don't think defenses will be able to stop him, even if they throw 3 guys on him. Well, okay, maybe then, but they'd have to do that. And I just think that he's so good, and he will show again why that everyone was in love with him after his freshman season.
Man, rewatch that UCLA tape. Like, that man was cooking against UCLA. That was so much fun to watch. How about the Mackey Award? I think the tight end is so wide open more than any of the other ones because there's no clear returning number one tight end. I think if you look at our top fives, there was so much variety in who's the number one tight end. So Josh, let me roll it right back to you. Who would be your pick for the Mackey Award?
I'm going to go with a guy who some people thought was robbed last year because he was only a freshman. That's Brock Bowers from Georgia. No offense to, I forgot who won, the guy from Colorado State who won it last year.
Trey McBride.
Yeah, thank you. He deserved it, but Bowers did pretty good. And I'm just going to, my only analysis really for Bowers is that when I was watching the SEC title game, I kind of like spaced. I'm like, man, Bowers is going to be awesome when he's drafted in the first round this year or this upcoming year. And I said, wait a second, he's only a freshman. He can't be drafted for another 2 years. So I just think another offseason under his belt, he's going to come in and just tear it up. And he will be the Mackey winner. Mackey a winner? That's not a word. The Mackey Award winner. There we go.
Ron, do you agree?
I can see it happening, but with Eric Gilbert likely coming back, there's going to be split targets and all the other options there. So I'm going to go with Michael Mayer, who I think has been the other big pick for the Mackey Award. Freshman year, he came on strong. There's still stuff to work on. He got even better 2021. I think he's going to get even better this year. I mean, the yards per reception keeps going up. Touchdown skyrocketed. And we might see him with better quarterback play. I mean, Jack Cohen was all right, but I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame has better quarterback play this year. And I could see him really putting up over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's having a big year.
Yeah, I absolutely loved what both of them did in their freshman seasons. But I thought Mayer did insanely just consistent last year was the number one thing. But speaking of consistent, my pick is actually going to be Brant Kuithe from Utah. I think he has an argument to be one of the best, if not the best, returning tight end in college football. Production might not say it. I think ability and skill might be. He's one of the most well-rounded tight ends in college football. The thing that kind of made me double think this was he's also got Dalton Kincaid. And those guys got a lot of, shared looks last season. I think Kincaid had more receiving yards and touchdowns than Kuithe did. But I just think Kithe's going to blow up this year. He's a fifth-year senior. The guy just knows how to get open, how to run routes, how to block. Just one of the smartest guys on the field at all times. I think he's going to have a huge year. I think Utah's offense in general is going to have a huge year. They don't really have that true number one wide receiver option that's proven. So I think they're going to rely on the tight ends a ton. So I think Kuithe is going to have just a huge, huge season. Well, let's go defense. This could be defense or offense, but let's trickle into the defense a little bit. Let's go with the Outland Trophy. And for me, it's so hard to pick an offensive guy for this because I just think that it's so hard to guess what the offensive line of a team could look like top to bottom. I think if I was to go offense, I'd go Peter Skoronski from Northwestern, but Outland Trophy, I would go Jalen Carter, second straight year that a Georgia interior defensive lineman wins it. I think casual fans may not know the name Jalen Carter as well as the new Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean and guys like that. But I mean, they were just stacked with superstars, and Carter was one of them. And I don't think that's an argument. 33 quarterback hurries, which are second on the team, which is outstanding. 8.5 tackles for loss. He actually had a couple block kicks too, which not many people did that. I think, the fact that there's so many guys that left for the NFL is his time to take over. In my opinion, he's a defensive tackle. He's got a defensive tackle build with edge talent and ability. So I just think he's going to absolutely tear it up and, be a possible top 10, top 5 draft pick next spring. Karan, what do you think about the Outland Trophy?
Yeah, I agree with you. There's not that many offensive guys so you can really sit here and predict up front, but I would have went with Carter. I think between him and Will Anderson, those are the two best players in college football, regardless of position. But I'll go out on a limb and say Brian Brees coming back from injury puts up monster numbers like we thought he would last year. Huge dude, just the prototype defensive tackle, 6'5", 300. And I think Clemson's going to be a bit better this year, and I think their defense is really going to be anchored by his play in the interior.
Josh, do you agree? It looked like that might have been your pick too.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. That was my pick. So great minds think alike. Yeah, Brazil's. I believe in Brazil. Usually, though, like coming off an ACL injury like that, usually it's the year after the year they return that an athlete like really pops off. But I just think he will come back and he will be a force of nature and destroy people.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what that defensive line does. I think it could be maybe not as good, but it could kind of remind people of those, the national championship days of like Clelin Ferrell, Austin Bryant, Christian Wilkins. Like that defensive line ain't nobody was stopping that defensive line. I think this one could be, really good and reminiscent of those days with Brissy and Miles Murphy. Now let's go back to one of the more obvious ones. I think the Bednarik Award, the best defensive player in college football. I don't think we're gonna have much variety on this one. Maybe I'm wrong, but Karan, let's start with you for the Bednarik Award.
Listen, if it's not Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, I would be like, I don't know. That some guy would have to have an insane season. I don't see how you can top both of those guys. But between those two, I think you have to go Will Anderson. I feel like there's a bit of a bias towards edge rushers in these type of awards because they're going to put up more sacks, more tackles, and all that. Carter could definitely be the more valuable player. I wouldn't be surprised if he was, but I think Will Anderson ends up winning it.
I know Will Anderson got the Nagurski Award last season, but I know Jordan Davis had a big year. He was a huge name. He got the better. I thought it should have been Will Anderson, man. Like I'll
never understand that one.
Any award that he could have won, I think he should have won, except for maybe the Heisman. In my opinion, I thought he should have got the Heisman. But I'm just a guy that thinks defensive players deserve the Heisman. Josh, do you think it's between Carter and Anderson as well for the Bednarik?
Yeah, it's Will. I have Will Anderson just because he does so much, and it's not just that he's an edge rusher. He just makes tackles all over the place. Plus, he's got Dallas Turner on the other side, so teams can't just tee off on Will Anderson. They have to respect Turner and whatever other monster 5-star Alabama has. So he's going to put up the same numbers again, and he will just dominate, and he will get this award.
If he can repeat what he did last season, because what he did last season was not human. He had 17 and a half sacks and 34 and a half tackles for loss. Like he's an absolute freak of nature with no regard for human life, to bring it back to a Kevin Harlan phrase from back in the day. Like this dude is an absolute animal. And I just love watching him play football. Like he's one of those guys whose stats pop off the screen, but his production on the field when you just watch his film might be even better than what his stats say. Like he's so much fun to watch. He's everywhere in every play. I don't remember anybody like for an entire 48 minutes. I don't remember a guy actually controlling him whatsoever. I think he was like in every single game doing damage, except for maybe, I think it was the Auburn game is when he only had like one tackle, but he still made, life hell for the quarterback and the offensive line. Butkus Award, I mean, do we even have to say it? The Butkus Award was already won, I believe, by Will Anderson last season, if I'm not mistaken. Are we all going Will Anderson in this one? Yeah. Oh, it was Nakobe Dean. Yeah, pardon me. It was Nakobe Dean.
No.
Who you got?
I've got, and this is for clarity, this is kind of just to be a little different, but I also think it's one of those things again where it's Will Anderson gets the bigger award. As award comes to the second place person. Not only second place. I just like to say that when it comes to defense, the military is really good at that. And I think that some guy up in West Point named Andre Carter II is going to dominate. And this is a dude at Army who is a serious first round, second round pick already. We'll see what happens with his eligibility and everything, but I think he'll be allowed to play in the NFL. This dude was a wide receiver in high school, which is why he flew under the radar. And then he bulked up. He's 6'4" or something, 260, but it's all muscle. He's just really fast. It's insane what he does. He's still got that wide receiver skill set that you see, like just how he moves. So he's still kind of learning the position, which is terrifying. So imagine what he's going to do this year with, again, another year under his belt learning, and he's going to be just terrorizing people.
Yeah, I mean, he's a freak for sure.
Andre Carter deserves respect, and I know that we got yelled at, I think, for this within our own group chat for not including him in our top 5 linebackers. But he is an absolute freak too. There are so many linebackers this year that are just massive, and another guy that we can't forget is Noah Sewell, who has come in and just been absolutely consistent, the top tackler since he's come in. He's only gotten bigger from what I understand. I think he came in at like 240, 250. I think he's hovering around 260 now. The dude's fast. I think he needs to get a little bit better in the passing attack. Just because there's so many, Pac-12 teams that just throw in the middle of the field, and he just has to be more consistent there. But I mean, for getting after the quarterback, for getting into the run coverage, I don't think there's really anybody better in the middle in college football than Noah Sewell. But that would be my pick for an interior linebacker to get it. I would say overall linebacker, you have to give it to Will Anderson for everything I said 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, can I throw in one more guy for the linebackers?
Absolutely.
I would go with Ivan Pace. I think is a big sleeper coming into Cincinnati. He was one of the best defensive players in the nation last year, but kind of went under the radar with Miami of Ohio. I think he's going to put up numbers. He's going to get his sacks. Cincinnati might not be as good as they were last year and the year before, but I think Ivan Pace is going to go off next year. I mean, his numbers are at Miami of Ohio were crazy. He tied the NCAA record for sacks in 2019 in one game. He was 10th in the nation, tackles 125. I think those are only going to get better in Cincinnati. And I think his brother, Deshaun Pace, is also pretty good. But between those two guys, I think you could be seeing at least one of them have a monster season.
Weren't you the one that, not to spoil it for anybody, it'll already be out, I think. Weren't you the one that put him as your invest in linebacker?
Yeah,
absolutely. So Karan is the leader of the Ivan Pace fan page, I guess. So yeah, definitely don't ignore him and that Cincinnati defense. They lost a lot of guys, but they're still going to have a lot of talent as well. And finally, let's kick it to the Jim Thorpe Award. I think this is one that's like as wide open in the preseason as I can remember. I mean, there are a lot of guys who have talent, but there's just not this, the Will Anderson guy who's like, oh yeah, it's going to go to him. Like it feels like there's been that guy for the Thorpe Award the last couple of years, and this one's such a toss up for me. So let me kick it to you, Karan. Who do you think is going to win the Thorpe Award?
I think we've all been pretty big fans of Utah coming into this season, and I think it's going to be Clark Phillips. I really liked him ending last year, played really well against Ohio State and down the stretch. I think he's got the physical talent. He's flashed it last year, and I think he's really going to come and put it all together this year, have a monster season, go to the NFL, and I think he has a definite chance at the Thorpe Award.
Josh, are you also going Clark Phillips?
I wanted to go Phillips for a long time, and I think if he's not in the top three, that's a sham. But I will go another coming to Alabama transfer, Eli Ricks from LSU. Last season, kind of up and down. LSU was kind of a mess last year. But in the 2020 season, where they were still kind of a mess, but not as bad, he did really, really well. And I know he was across from Stingley, but then Stingley didn't actually play that much. So it was a lot of Ricks, and Ricks did really good. And he still looked decent last season. And I think, again, coming in, he's going to be the main guy, if not like a top 2 corner for Alabama. And he will just be a ball hawk and be picking it off. And he's also got the playmaking ability. One of his interceptions, his freshman year, he returned it like 70-something yards for a touchdown. So he's got that playmaking ability in him also. And people love touchdowns, especially if it comes from a defensive back. So I'm going to go with him.
I remember when Derek Stingley was out for a little bit, the talk on the broadcast, whenever I'd watch LSU, was like, if Derek Stingley this, if Derek Stingley that, when he comes back, this and that. Like, look at Eli Ricks. Look what this guy's doing. Like, this guy's insane. He's honestly like probably just as productive, if not more productive. And he's just locking fools down, and nobody was talking about it until now. He's at Alabama, and I feel like everybody's like, okay, this guy's one of the top corners in college football. I think he got some respect last season, but not as much as he deserved. And I definitely think he's going to get that under the limelight of Tuscaloosa. There's a little light that shines above that football program over there. So I think he'll get what he deserves over there and probably be a top 3 finalist. I think it's between him, Clark Phillips, and in my opinion, I'd say Brandon Joseph. I think he was a guy who was really slept on last season, came in with all the preseason hype. He had a really good year, but Northwestern was just garbage. And so nobody really batted an eye about the season he had. I thought he was honestly the best defensive back in the country going into last season. It seemed like it was still kind of underwhelming, like I said, because of how bad they were. But I mean, he had 3 interceptions, 80 total tackles. I think 54 of them were solo. And now he's, at Notre Dame, he's going to pick up where Kyle Hamilton left off. obviously different players. Colin Hamilton was just a generational talent at safety. But Brandon Joseph is rangy in himself, excellent football IQ, great footwork, which comes from his background of playing receiver in high school, also played quarterback in high school. So I'm really excited to see what he does in the Notre Dame defense. I'm not super high in Notre Dame as a team this season, but I think if he can show out week one against, that Ohio State passing attack, then I'm going to have a lot of faith that he's going to have a dominant year and will be a finalist at the very least for the Thorpe Award. So let's get into the part that I'm most excited to talk about. Let's break down 3 major upsets that we're predicting for this season. Josh, let me kick it off with you. Let's hear it, man. What are your 3 upsets?
All right. So my first one is either Appalachian State or Georgia State beats North Carolina. North Carolina, they're probably not going to be like a top team, but that's still a Power 5 team. For some reason, scheduling 2 road games in the Sun Belt, which is really weird. Like, who's doing the scheduling for the Tar Heels? This is ridiculous. And App State, everyone knows them. Great program, known giant killer. Georgia State also really, really good. And if North Carolina doesn't get got at Appalachian State, they play them first. Next week, going into Georgia State the following week, that might be the one that gets them. So, again, I don't know who's scheduling. That's just a weird schedule. My second one, this one just makes me laugh. It's Arizona beats North Dakota State. That's my upset, because I really think that North Dakota State's going to go in there and just destroy them, because Arizona lost to Northern Arizona last year. Yeah, Northern Arizona, and Northern Arizona didn't win a game the rest of the season. And I know Arizona's got more players, they're improved, yada yada yada. They're actually really good. If you look at their games last year, they actually competed in a lot of them. But North Dakota State is just really, really good. So that's my upset of Arizona beating North Dakota State. And then my final one, it's kind of a spicy one, but I've got Eastern Washington they're going to beat either Oregon or Florida. Again, a crazy schedule that Eastern Washington is going to 2 FBS programs. But we know their history against Pac-12 school, Pac-10, then 12 schools is really, really good. And Florida, they've got a lot of talent. They probably should win, but you never know. New head coach, we'll see with Florida. And Eastern Washington, I know they just lost. They lost a lot of good talent from last year's team, but again, another really good FCS team. So I've got Eastern Washington pulling off the upset. If I had to pick one, honestly, I might pick Florida. I don't know why. So that's the one where I just feel like Florida's gonna Florida that game, and it might be a lot closer than people think.
I think both those games are going to be a lot closer than people think. And I probably would have said the same exact thing had we been doing the show last year and those games were scheduled. I probably would have been really nervous if Oregon was hosting Eastern Washington last year. I would have been very, very nervous. I would have easily picked Eastern Washington to beat Florida if we were talking about last year. Now it might be a little bit more tentative, but I definitely think that they have a good chance of beating both teams. But I agree with you on the Florida side. Karan, what are your 3 upsets?
My first one I was kind of stumped on, because I'm just going to ask you guys here. Would you guys consider Arkansas beating Cincy to be an upset at this point? I don't think so. I don't think
not particularly. No. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think Arkansas is going to come out and really they're going to go off against Cincy. I think Cincy is going to start off flat this year between their quarterback issues, whether it's Ben Bryant or Evan Prater. I just don't think their offense is really going to be doing much. I think NC State's going to beat Clemson again. I like Devin Leary, and I like what that NC State team is doing, and I think they're going to come out and have another strong performance. And then on November 19th, I think Coastal Carolina is going to beat Virginia, and I think it's going to be a big statement win for them and a pretty strong season overall. I like Coastal. They've been pretty good over the last years, and I think they're going to continue that this year, especially with Grayson McCall really coming into his own.
Those are all really good ones, but I honestly feel like we saved the spiciest for last, because I came out with some spicy ones. I know I've talked about one of them before. If you guys listen to the Pac-12 preview, you'll have heard this one before. I think also piggybacking off of Arizona, I'm very, very high on Arizona this year. I think they're going to beat Oregon in week 6 in Tucson. That is something that since that schedule came out, I've just looked at that game. I was like, oh no, it's happening. Oregon's not going to win in Tucson. because that's just where Oregon falls. It's like their kryptonite. It's every year. The state of Arizona is just where Oregon's hopes and dreams go to die. And I think this is the Arizona team that could possibly really turn it around. I'm not saying they're going to be, like a Baylor team that, goes from nothing and turns into, a conference champion and yada, yada. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they will be like a 6-6 team. And I think their momentum is going to start by beating Oregon. But I do think they're going to lose to North Dakota State, actually. Just the weirdness of the Pac-12. My next one is probably not going to fly very well with the college football Twitter world. I think East Carolina is going to pull off a massive upset and beat NC State week 1. I love East Carolina going into this season. I think they're going to finish toward the top of the conference. I'm a huge, huge fan of Keaton Mitchell in that rushing attack, and hours in that passing. I love the offense. I think the defense is going to be better, but I think the NC State game, I could either see them winning that game or I could see NC State just torching them. Like, I don't really see it being a close NC State win in my mind. I just think it's going to be a wild game regardless. But I have East Carolina pulling off the upset, and I think NC State's still going to have a good year. But I feel like we're going to get some craziness in week 1, and that's going to be a headliner. And then week 7, brace yourself, because I have Tennessee beating Alabama. I talked about Tennessee. I love Tennessee this year. I think they're going to be number 2 behind Georgia in the SEC East. I think that game is going to be the Tennessee versus Georgia game could decide who wins the East. I just think this is the year that Tennessee proves people wrong. I love the offense, like I said. I think it's going to be a shootout if Tennessee does win it. There's no way that they're going to hold Alabama to 35 or less. So, but that's my hot take. I love this Tennessee team. I'm going out on a limb. I think they beat Alabama. So I brought the spice. I delivered. I promised I delivered.
For transparency for the people, sorry, Dylan. Our next segment is 3 hottest takes for the season, and I think Dylan just did it there. So I have no idea what he's going to do for his hottest takes. This is going to be insane.
Yeah. For the record, we at Transfer Portal College Football do not condone all of his takes, and we respect his opinion, but we do not endorse them.
Hey, you know what, Matt? I wrote this outline. I wanted to bring the spice. We need clips on social media that people are going to be mad at, and I will take all the heat. Throw all the heat at me. I don't care. I'll take it. I know I'm probably going to look stupid in about 10 weeks from now. I know I'm going to look really stupid. I'm probably going to go 0-3 on those, and then 0-3 on the hot takes I'm about to say. But it's college football. It's 2 days away when you're watching this. So get excited. Hot takes. We're in the groove of things now. So without further ado, I'm going to take a step back and let you guys take the wheel on the hot takes. Josh, let me start with you. Let's kick up the spice, man. What do you got?
All right. Okay, they all kind of set up for each other. So Coastal Carolina and Houston both finish undefeated. And as we know, the highest group of 5 team goes to a New Year's 6 game. But I have Coastal Carolina going to the New Year's 6 game because we'll go on. Georgia will experience their first loss of the season in the SEC title game, and they do not make the playoffs. Ooh. And then my final hot take, a 1-loss Clemson and or a 1-loss Pac-12 school is left out of the playoffs, which doesn't sound that hot takey, but I will finish it in the next section because technically I have a 4th hot take, but it's going to go with the next section.
All right. Spicy indeed. Karan, can you kick it up a notch? What do you got?
Right, I said I'd come back to him. Cam Ward, I think, is going to be at the very least the top 2 QB in the Pac-12. I want to say he'll be the best, but Caleb Williams is pretty good. I'm not gonna push him there. I don't think he's that bad, but we'll see. My second one, this might be a bit hotter. I don't think Florida is going to be. I think they're going to kind of come up flat again. I like Billy Napier. I like him. But ultimately, Anthony Richardson, I wasn't too impressed with last year. There's a lot of work to be done with him as a passer. Like, I know people are ready to crown him as this Heisman candidate sleeper type of guy. I just don't see it with him. I think he's better than Emory, obviously, but there's still a lot of work to be done. He's a project. And then my last one, little I'm not sure if it's hot or not. I think Pitt's going to come out under 8.5 wins. That's the spread for them, and I think they're going to come out under that. I like Slovis, but I don't know. I just think they lost so much talent that there's really they're going to start off flat, and they could come around at the end, but it's going to be a pretty mediocre season for Pitt in my eyes.
Wow. So Karan is not hopping on the Florida hype train or the Pitt hype train. There seems to be a Pitt hype train. People still think that they're going to be one of the better teams in the country, and I agree with you. Honestly, I don't really see it either.
I think they'll be similar to UNC last year with the type of hype UNC got. I think it's going to be the same thing.
For sure. Well, I mean, I don't know if I can match what I said for the upsets, but I'm going to try. And I know I'm going to piss off a couple people with this first one, but I just have this feeling in my heart that despite their recruiting success, despite the roster that they have, I think Texas A&M is going 8-4 again. I honestly do. I honestly think that they're gonna fall flat.
Take.
Yeah,
well, I know. I just
agree with that.
I just know that people are gonna come for my head. Jake, I'm sorry. I know you're listening, but I just think that their road schedule is gonna be tough. I think that they could go 1-3 in those 4 games. But in my bookkeeping here, I have them losing to Alabama, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and I think they fall flat against Florida. I don't know why. I think they do. I just think it's one Texas A&M game where it's like, why the hell did they lose that game? I think it's Florida. That's just my opinion. I did bring this up earlier. I do think the Tennessee-Georgia game is going to decide who goes to the SEC championship game. I think Tennessee is going to be either a one-loss team or an undefeated team going into that game. And I think if they beat Georgia, which I don't think they will, then I think they're going to be possible playoff team. Honestly, I don't see them losing to anybody but an Alabama or a Georgia. In my opinion, I think Tennessee's that good. I'm going to be probably way off on Tennessee. I said West Virginia was going to be a New Year's 6 team last year. I have a feeling this Tennessee pick is going to be like an exact copy of that. And then my last one, Karan knows about this because we did the Mountain West show together, but I've got Fresno State being my group of 5 New Year's 6 bowl team. I have them finishing 11-1, and their only loss is going to be against USC in the last minute. I think USC scores on their last drive to win that game. And I think Air Force and Houston are going to be right behind them at 10-2. I think Coastal will probably be in that 10-2, 9-3 range as well. I'm probably not as high as you guys are on Coastal. I'm really, really high on Air Force, though. I love Air Force going into this year. And if Fresno State doesn't win the Mountain West, I think Air Force will. So without further ado, Josh kind of preambled it a little bit with the college football playoff picks. So let me start it with you since you kind of teased it. So let's talk about your 1 through 4 seeding for the college football playoff, and then who do you got winning the national championship game?
All right. So to round out from what I had with my hot takes, so I got my number 1 seed is an undefeated Alabama. My number 2 seed is an undefeated Ohio State. Number 3 is and I don't want to say they'll have a one loss Oklahoma, and then finally my 4 seed, which is probably my hottest take, is Houston will make the college football playoff. And I just realized now that if this were to happen, then technically that's the group of 5's New Year's 6th berth. But whatever, we'll give Coastal Carolina a New Year's 6th berth because we love the Chants. And I know Cincinnati qualified last year because they started out ranked number 8 in the AP poll preseason, and they had that Notre Dame win, and they had to go. It's not just undefeated 1 year; they had to go undefeated in 2 straight regular seasons to get it. And then this year, Houston starts out as 24. I think they're behind Cincinnati. I think also, which is crazy. And their best win on paper would be at Texas Tech. But man, you know what? Playoff committee, I'm calling your bluff, man. Look me in the eyes. Put Houston in. If Cincinnati can go undefeated and do it, why not Houston? Tell me why, with a straight face, why Houston can do it too. So I'm going to have the Cougars in it. Unfortunately, they're going to get destroyed by Alabama. And then in a very exciting title game, Ohio State will beat Alabama. If we're putting out a score, I like points. I'll have it in the high 40s.
Wow. All righty. Well, I'm gonna go right with you for the national championship. I think I have my top 2 seeds, Ohio State and Alabama. I think that's my natty title game. Natty title game. Nobody calls it that. And then my 3 seed, I've got Georgia, and 4 seed, I have Utah. I think Georgia will probably be a 1-loss team. I think Alabama probably will be 2. I think Ohio State is going to be the only undefeated team at the end of the season going into the playoff. And I think Utah, a one-loss Utah team, will make it to the playoffs as well. I think their one loss will probably be at Oregon. If I had to really like write it down, I think they could be a 2-loss team, and some other team would come in, probably like maybe a Clemson or an Oklahoma. I don't really know, but I think this could be the year that the Pac-12 finally comes back, and a respectable Pac-12 team, not like Washington. Sorry, Josh. I think a dominant Utah team makes it into the college football playoff, and they give Ohio State another run for their money in the first round. But I've got Ohio State winning and then beating Alabama in the national championship game. And Alabama is going to lose a consecutive national championship game for the first time ever. I think college football needs it. Not really, but I need it. Karan, let's go to you. What's your college football playoff and natty picks?
So I have the same teams as you, actually. I think it's going to be Ohio State undefeated. Bama, I think, could go undefeated. Georgia, 1 loss. And then Utah, I could also see going undefeated, but we'll have to see with them. I mean, I like Utah. I think they'll make it for sure. And then I do think it's going to come down to Alabama, Ohio State. And I think Ohio State could definitely pull it off. It's going to be a really good game, but I think Ohio State could outscore Alabama for sure. And I think that would really be one of the great games, possibly ever, if we got to see it.
Oh, absolutely. And like, I have a feeling it's either going to be a super like close game, Alabama, Georgia, or was that 2018-17 with the game winner in overtime, or it's going to be like Clemson, Bama, where it was like 44-16 and just a poop show. So I'm really hoping for a really competitive national championship game. I'm hoping Ohio State makes it and they just, tear it up. I'm so high on this Ohio State team. I would really hate to see them miss the playoff. In my mind, I don't think there's anybody on the schedule for Ohio State that could take them out, in my opinion. So we've all got Ohio State winning the natty. That's pretty wild. So thank you everybody so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. This is a really entertaining one. Let us know in the comments. Who do you have winning the Heisman? Who do you have going to the college football playoff and winning it all? College football is right here. It's time to talk about it, man. This weekend, college football is going to be on TV. We got to watch Nebraska Northwestern at, 9 a.m. Pacific time in Ireland. That's the headliner, I know. But hey, college football is back. I'm going to be watching Idaho State UNLV if it's possible to. I really don't care. It's going to be so much fun. So thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, check out all of our preview content that we've got all over our channel and our articles on our website. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. We're over 5K now, so that's awesome. Instagram, we're on there. TikTok, we're blowing up on there. Give us some love. So thank you everybody so much, and we'll see you in the next one.